Welcome to CEO Open Mic. Today we're hosting Brad Power, who represents Kendra Scott. Actually, Brad, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Brad Power. Bartek mentioned I work for Kendra Scott, which is a jewelry company in North America. We're headquartered in Austin, Texas. We have about 140 retail stores, a thriving e-commerce business, and also a wholesale division.
All right. So, what's your role in a company?
My role at Kendra Scott is over e-commerce, where I lead our product management and user experience teams.
All right. So, could you say that whatever I could see online on Kendra Scott's online store goes through your hands and you touched it at some point?
Definitely for any features that you see. Obviously, for the other e-com experts in the audience, you all know merchandising is another big part of the site. So the day-to-day changing of the products and the seasonal campaigns have a lot more to do with the merchandising team. But my team would drive the UX and the features that allow them to post the content that they do.
All right. All right. All right. Just before we dive into Kendra Scott in specific and the team that you manage in specific, how long are you in the industry?
I've been in the retail industry specifically for my entire career. So I started in the wireless industry where I was there for a decade, then moved into grocery, and then I've been with Kendra Scott for the last 14 months, so just over a year now.
Right. Okay. Do you have any technical background? Do one need to have any like skills in the computer science or UX itself, or can you do it without that knowledge?
I think it helps to have a good understanding of technology whenever you work around technical teams or technical products. I have had people in my past that were really good product managers that had really strong analytics skills. At a minimum, I think that you need some sort of query capability and or data science to just be able to get at the data to help you make the right business decisions, but not to the point that you could code a front end experience.
Right. Okay.
But it does help because we are working with developers every day, and sometimes they give you an estimate for the work that you want that seems a little inflated. And so having some ability to argue with them a little bit is helpful.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand it well enough not to be.
Yeah, that's not to have the wool pulled over your eyes. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. So, how big is the team that you manage right now?
This is a chance for me to start again at what for me is a smaller company. So in my past, the teams were dozens and dozens of people. Now our merchandising team is about 8 to 10. The product management team, there's four of us, and the UX team two. So this is one of the smaller teams I've had in a while, but it was a chance for me in my career. I enjoy the building part, and I think that's part of why I'm excited to have the conversation with you today. Is it's one thing to be at a big enterprise. You can certainly learn a lot. It's a lot of fun to be working at a little bit smaller scale where you get to touch more things and build more things.
So, but how does it work in a company? Because what you said, over 170 stores, physical stores that you said, and then again, the online team, the e-commerce team is that small. So, how does it work within the company, within the the whole organization?
Yeah, it's been a journey. Like a lot of companies, when COVID hit, if they didn't have a strong e-commerce business, things got accelerated. If they had no e-commerce business, they had to scramble to put one together. For Kendra Scott in particular, they were somewhere in the middle of there. They had a year or two online experience before COVID hit, and it accelerated it. So for us, how it works is, we get overall company goals, and then we get kind of channel specific goals. And so, we're given either a revenue or EBITDA target or both that help us understand what we're trying to grow and then also what budget we have. And then our job is to look at competitor sites, look at customer feedback that we get, look at our own internal ideas for features, and try to figure out which things we can add to the website that help us drive the revenue goal with the budget that we have to spend. So the size of the team could certainly be bigger, although, when you're building something, for me personally, taking a little more time to build it with a smaller group where multiple people can wear multiple hats, build the trust with the business, build a track record of delivering, and then asking for headcount is better than to go ask for a lot of headcount, miss some of your targets, and then there's pressure on the team, right? So a little bit of that old adage of under promise and over deliver for a little while is good. Me and my boss have only been with the company for a year, and so we're both still working to show that we can build this track record of success and delivering.
Right, but I can imagine that it looks a little bit like you're building everything from scratch. So I can imagine that you had like thousand ideas at the very beginning what you should do and how it should be done and who you need to do it. So how do you prioritize?
There's a few methodologies that I've had a lot of success with. There's something that they're all in the realm of some sort of return on investment. How do you figure out the cost, where the cost might be the human labor that needs to go into it from your internal teams? It could be development agencies. It could be software costs. Could be some third party product that you need to buy. And then obviously there's the revenue that you're going to generate with it. And so, at the purest thing, it's take the cost and figure out how much of a multiple you're going to make for your benefit or your revenue. And then you get some sort of return on investment. And then I'm sure this is familiar for a lot of people in your audience. You're just coming up with some sort of cut line where, based upon the dollars I have to spend, where do I run out of capacity this year? And then you go back to your leadership team and say, okay, based upon the capacity you've given me, this is the revenue that I think I can generate. Here are the business cases that support these different ideas and the math that's behind them, right? And here's 10 more ideas below the capacity that if you gave me more capacity, I could go make you more money, right? I think that's another important thing when you're working with investors or leaders, is letting them know you have the potential to do more. You have more ideas in the bank. So if we can show success, can we put more fuel on the fire by getting some more capacity after we show, really strong quarter 1 earnings or first month earnings, or kind of however your cycle works about how you get funding?
Well, frankly speaking, all you just said sounds very reasonable and it sounds like quite obvious. But I've seen it a number of times from the development agency perspective that the features that we were developing for our clients, it had nothing to do with the analysis. It had nothing to do with the return of
Yeah,
investment. It was mostly about, the ego or just, oh, it looks so nice, let's
sure.
have it.
You can't deny that happens, right? And I think that it's stronger in founder-led organizations, right? It's stronger when organizations are still new, because some group of people got together and had this great idea. They've been able to get some momentum and have some success. And so a role like mine, especially coming into a company that has now a 20-year life, and to try to challenge people and come at it from a pure data perspective, like you're saying, Buddy, like that doesn't work. You have to understand their perspective. You may even have to take a few of their ideas that you're not as sure on into the roadmap, and then figure out a way to have a feedback loop where you say, I heard you, I listened to you, you have a lot of success and a lot of great experience. We did your idea and this is how it did. Is that how you thought it was going to go? Is that more or less than you thought? Right. But trying to be a barrier and saying no just presents you as an outsider that doesn't understand the business and doesn't respect the experience and the culture that was there before you. So you're 100% right. I've seen it happen at a company as large as Amazon, and I've seen it happen now at a company that's quite a bit smaller.
So that factor is still there.
You have to, you try to minimize that as much as possible, and then create a valuable learning opportunity, right? To a feedback mechanism to say, great, we heard it, we did it, this is what it is. Is it what we thought it would be? So some sort of business review is what I usually try to incorporate on a month, at least monthly basis, if not quarterly, with the senior leadership team, so they can see this is what we thought we were going to deliver. This is how we're tracking. And in a nice way, if they had the idea, point out how their idea is doing relative to the other ideas, right? And if they knock one out of the park, give them credit for that too, right? Like, it's not about having an ego, like you said. I can't have one either. I won't be successful.
And how do you handle that on the let's say corporate level? What I'm trying to say is that do you try to like lay out the responsibilities of certain people in the team so that one has the right to say, okay, that's my decision. I know you don't agree with it, but that's how I want to do it. So yeah, do, does it happen?
I like to try to create a culture where there's an old assembly line Toyota phrase called the andon cord. And the idea there was that anyone on the assembly line could pull the cord and stop the entire assembly line if they thought something was going to mess up the assembly line, right? So one of the things I think that's culturally important is that people feel that sense of empowerment to raise their hand when they think something is going to go off the rails. That's a cultural thing that I try to build in with the teams. I think another part of your question is like, how do you give people kind of the autonomy for maybe within a product like a website, what does product manager A have responsibility for versus product manager B have responsibility for? And a lot of that is listening to them, looking at where they want to go in their career, recognizing what experience they have, and then where do those two things fit with the business needs that you have in the roadmap, right? Where can I give Bartek an opportunity to grow his career the where he wants by matching some of his experience with a project, or in some cases, right, where is the project that I'm going to give Bartek, who has no experience, the least risk to the company if he fails,
Mhm.
right? That's an important leadership thing for me, is that if we really break it down, we never learn from success, we only learn from failure. So how do I set you up to fail where the failure will be the least impactful to you and the least impactful to the company? And so it's kind of a triangle there that I think about, where it's your experience, where you want to go in your career, and the job opportunities that are going to present themselves based upon, the products or projects that we need to deliver.
But that's amazing what you just said. With all my experience and years working with managers of certain levels in a companies, it's not a common thing to hear a senior manager saying that I plan the tasks in such a way that my people in my team could be evolving as well. It's not only about having the tasks delivered, but it's also about growing the people that you work with. It's amazing.
In my career, I've had a lot of success by trying to align people's passion of where they want to be with their experience, and then the job that the company needs from them. I think it creates a sense of camaraderie with them, where they realize that you're trying to help them grow their career. You're giving them work that's meaningful and valuable to them. You've heard that from them. You've listened to them, which is a big part of any kind of relationship, right? Is the listening side. And then you're going to have one of those projects that nobody really wants, but people are going to realize it's the exception and want to take it because they know that the majority of the time you're trying to give them valuable work that's helping them grow their career.
All right, it sounds great, but it sounds doable only when you deal with like what, two, three, five, up to I don't know, eight subordinates that you have. How do you scale it?
Well, traditionally, what I found is when you get to more, I think a lot of people might find this to be true. I found that about 7 to 10 people is where you maximize a project team. You get bigger than that, regardless of the task and the skills you're trying to do, and things just start to break. And so, in a situation like that, where when I've scaled teams like that, you have to figure out a way to break the project into smaller pieces, or break the product into smaller pieces. So if we're thinking about a web experience, right, and you're starting with a smaller team, you might think that the entire website is your commerce experience, right? And you've got one or two product managers that are dividing it all up. You have some success, and your team gets to, let's say, 15 people, and you realize you need to break it into two. Well, maybe you break it into pre-cart. Everybody that's responsible for merchandising and everything before an item gets added to the cart, and then you have another team that's responsible for cart, which is all the part of the cart, all the part of the checkout, all the part of the payment, taxes, all that kind of stuff, right? You can, just imagine that you just keep breaking in it as your team gets smaller, and then in a much larger enterprise, it might be something like someone owns the web experience, which is all of the navigation and everything else, but another team owns the merchandising part, and another team owns. And so that's how you scale it, is that you keep the team organized around smaller pieces of work as you get more and more people. And so then the truism is you can keep giving them work that's valuable for your career, because as you have to break the team, you say, well, who's really interested in cart? Who's really interested in pre-cart? And then you let the team again kind of self-select as much as possible. And it does sound great, and it will work the majority of the time. There will be times where you're like, ooh, well, we got 5 people that want the same thing, and I only need 2 of them. So how are we going to do this? Would you be willing to do this for a year and go on a rotation, and then we have some sort of commitment internally that in a year we'll swap, right? And it's all part of how you plan a career plan with somebody, so they know what they're going to be focused on, and they know they're going to have a chance to do something different, and they understand when it's going to be and how it's going to be valuable for them.
And that also, I suppose, that also stands true for the task that nobody want to take, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So coming back from the beginning, you were put into the position where you had to scale the e-commerce that you got when you got into Kendra Scott. Were you the one to choose your team, or did you inherit the team from somebody else?
I had inherited everyone. Yeah, so I got here and the team was fully hired. And throughout my career, I've had a mix of both, right? And I don't know that one is better than the other. I think that if the team that you get as part of your hiring process, they're selecting you. So you have some credibility already with them because they've gone through an interview process with you and they've said, I like this person, or hopefully, right? Then I think if you've hired them, it's the inverse. You've been a part of their panel and you've selected them. But I think there's still some connection or bond or respect for one another in the skills that you have. And so I don't know that one is better than the other, but yeah, definitely where I am now, the entire team was there. I've also had a bartender where you come in and the team that you inherit isn't the right skill set. And then that's a different conversation, right? Where you start to try to say, okay, I understand where you want to go. I need you to understand where the company wants to go. And there's not complete alignment there. So then that development plan looks more like, I need you to go to work, take a class, read a book, because I need you to acquire skills that you don't have. And here's how I'm going to support you to do that. Are you aligned that is going to help you get where you want to go in your career? Or is that not where you plan to go in your career? And then there's a different conversation altogether, right? Of, okay, great. Well, how can I help you be successful in a job search, right? Because exits are inevitable. So the best thing to me is to have somebody in the marketplace that's saying good things about the company they just left than to be saying bad things about the company they just left. So how can I set them up for success, either internally or using my network or whatever I can do to help them be successful if they have to exit the company because it's not a good fit.
That sounds, that sounds like a walk in the park. That sounds like you just enter the organization. You either have great people that want to follow your leadership, or you have great people that don't really suit you, but still you can resonate with them. But my little experience tells me that life is not that easy.
Sure.
Probably you had like number of challenges. Could you name few of them?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the person is maybe unhappy with the previous leadership, or they're unhappy with the change, or they've got things going on in their life that are different than where they were a year or 2 years ago. And so people are all human beings and we all need to have empathy for one another because we all have parts of our life where things are going different than how we imagined they would, right? And if I've had any success, one of the things I try to think about is really listening to them and understanding what is going on as much as they'll tell me, and then using that to help them, right? So I have had situations where myself and someone else did not agree with where we were going, and it's because that person had a life event happen where they wanted to change their career. And so listening to that, I was able to say, great, I understand that. Let's get our HR, our team member services team involved here, and let's figure out what sort of opportunities that we have to help you, because you have been with the company for 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the answer is, and we don't want to give up on you. You have a lot of great experience in a sector that we're interested in. Where do you want to go? And is maybe there's some internal training. I've had it also go where the answer is an exit, right? Pure and simple. Didn't like me, didn't like the direction of where we were going. And I just try to separate that personally and say, like, great, I'm sorry if there's anything I've ever done that's offended you. My job still as your leader is to help you as much as I can. And so these are the things I can do to help you. If you think they're going to be helpful, I'll do them for you. If you don't think they're going to be helpful, then we can agree to disagree and figure out how to exit you as fast as possible, right? Because you're not going to be happy and I'm not going to be happy and you don't think I know what I'm doing. So let's move it as fast as we can, right? But in my entire career of managing people, which now is 30 or 35 years, that's happened one time out of probably 20 exits I've had to do. Because most of the time, if you are just patient and a good listener, you can get to what the problem is that the person is having and figure out a way that you can help them. And then you build respect with them as a human being, which is different than their boss and different than their corporate leader. And they understand that you're there and you're really trying to help them. And it turns a page where people realize, this isn't a fight with Brad. He does want to help me. And the help I need is to get out of this company. And he's willing to do that, right?
Mhm. All right.
But it can be hard, like you said.
Well, yeah, it could be. Do you ever give a second chance or a third chance?
We call them boomerangs. Yeah. And it happens a lot, right? Where somebody feels that there's a different opportunity, and we've all been at that point in our life where, what's the adage, the grass is greener on the other side, right? They go and find out that it's not as great as they thought it was, or something changes at the company that they went to, and then they want to come back. My general philosophy is, yeah, everybody deserves a second chance, right? I mean, going back to the earlier thing that I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, right, is we only learn through making mistakes.
Mhm.
So when somebody realizes they make a mistake and want to redeem themselves, we should all be open to that, because that's the learning process. That's how we all grow, right? And in that journey, I might find that I did something that influenced the departure, and I want to be a better leader as a result. So I've never had somebody come back 3 times, but definitely a lot of people have come back after leaving, because it all sounds great when you're in an interview process, right? It's more money, and it's we got free lunches, and everything sounds great. And then you get over there and they're like, "Oh, we didn't mention it's 18-hour workdays."
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not really a free lunch. We're just giving it to you to keep you in the office.
Yeah, yeah. I'm asking because I had this kind of situations pretty well, not often, but a few times, and it was a little bit awkward at the very beginning. But then, I knew what should I expect, so that was pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's talk about tools a little bit. So how do you organize the work of the team?
Well, one of the things that we try to do when we put the roadmap together is outline, again, these features. And then as we start to write kind of the high level document around the feature itself, we start to understand what tooling is that feature going to take to deliver. And so, if you're on a commerce platform that offers a lot of features like Shopify or BigCommerce or Salesforce, you can, work with your partner, however you got that product stood up, and start to understand what capabilities the tool natively have to deliver this feature versus where might I need a third party. And then in the cases, again, all three of those, they have some sort of partnership where they can talk to you about, well, these are features or tools that are kind of certified, and then you kind of work your way down that list, and then you might get to the point of nobody has anything that we want available kind of out of the box. We have to go build it. And then my personal experience is that you might need to reevaluate again the ROI of doing that, right? Because starting to build your own feature from scratch that you're going to incorporate with another tool that is going to have a new release once a month or once a quarter puts you in a cycle of perhaps regular maintenance to keep this feature. So you really have to understand like the long-term technical debt that you might be taking on by building out of the box. But at a high level, that's kind of how we think about it, is when wanting to deliver some new value for the customer, what's it going to take to do it? How are we going to bring these tools together? How well do these tools play together? And then if we have to go build it ourselves, based upon our current size, the technical team's not such that we want to be doing that a lot, because it can just get into maintenance where you're spending a lot of time, and all of a sudden the value of the feature just keeps going down and down and down and down because you're having to put so much into maintenance.
All right. So, uh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I suppose that puts you pretty often in a position where you'd like to get some, let's say, feature developed for the for the production environment, and then you end up with the problem that you don't want to develop it yourself because of the maintenance loophole, what you just
Mm-hmm.
said. But then again, the tools that you could use that are ready to use are not really what you're looking for. What would you do then?
I think this is kind of a maybe a philosophical and or differentiator question. So for us, as we go to the marketplace, we're a retailer that wants to have a commerce experience. We want to deliver value to our customers, and we want to be on par with other sites that our customers think are in kind of our same class. If I was at a technology company where my differentiator was cutting edge technology, and the way I differentiated myself on the marketplace was the coolest, greatest, fastest, newest programming language, right? I'd probably be staffed completely differently, because then I'd be a tech first company trying to deliver technology. So I think part of your question is kind of understanding what kind of company you are and how are you trying to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. And so I'd say where we are and where we want to be is a fast follower versus kind of an early adopter, or a build your own, because where the way we want to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace is the actual physical product, the jewelry that we make. We want that to be our customer service. We want that to be the differentiator. Versus again, if I was a tech startup, I'm trying to serve the customer with a different set of values. And I'd also probably be staffed very differently, right? I probably wouldn't have 150 retail stores. I'd probably put a lot of that capital into engineering teams, where I would be able to do the work because it's all about customization. It's all about coming up with the newest, coolest thing and using the fastest programming language and consolidating and being on the fewest number of servers, like all the different things that you think about when you're kind of tech first.
But that's a very, very clever takeaway for everybody who listens to us. You don't have to have the best system in the world. You don't have to be cutting edge technology, like bleeding edge and all that. Your clients they don't care about that, right?
Yeah, I think there's some key pillars, right? They want to be able to log in easy. They want a frictionless checkout process where they can pay easy, and they want good customer service, good returns, right? There's a couple of pillars that are in there. But to your point, do you have to be Amazon caliber all the time on every feature? No, right? Because they're in a different business. Like they're a different scale. They're a different company. And it is important, right? As product managers, we have to think about that a lot. We have to think about how do I going to invest in this, and not what's just the initial cost, but what's kind of my ongoing cost to keep this feature, right? Because if it's low cost this year and it has a really high ROI, but over a 3-year or 5-year payback horizon, the maintenance keeps going up and up and up, or the hosting cost keeps going up and up and up, then my return on investment keeps diminishing every year. While you may not be able to use the multi-year valuation in how you get money from your backers or your internal team, thinking about a multi-year horizon is important in terms of the cost that you're going to spend on it.
Mm-hmm. And how about evaluating the potential tools that you're going to use? So, for instance, let me give an example. You want to achieve some kind of functionality on a website, and you have, I don't know, 5 ways to do it, like 5 different modules or
Mm-hmm.
plugins to use. They all are priced differently. They all have some constant pros. So, what's the exact process that you follow to evaluate them?
Yeah, usually when we get into a situation like that where we have more than one partner that we're exploring or more than one tool that we're exploring, we'll try to put together some selection criteria, right? So Um, if there's going to be a team like the merchandising team that's going to use the feature a lot, like we would want some way to evaluate that it's going to be easy for them to use. Like, does it have a WYSIWYG editor? Is it an easy UI? Right? Like, is it? We'd also have some technical component, like our technical team would weigh in and say, how easy is this going to be for us to integrate? How much maintenance is it? In the case of, again, a Shopify or a BigCommerce or a Salesforce platform, something like that. Also, like, what do they say about this partner? Do they have a perspective that this is a gold partner versus we've never heard of them? I think then it's, are there other sites that you can look at where this product is running, and you use their site like a customer, so you can get an idea of how does this feature really work on the site. Then kind of the next level down would be talking to the different partners and getting some customer references, like how easy is this partner to work with, how easy is this tool to integrate. Did they tell you it was 2 days and it was really 2 months, right? Like, so getting some sort of customer references, and then obviously prices in there too that you've got to, but a short scorecard, we try to think about 8 to 10 things that represent the different needs of the different departments that are going to be using the tool or supporting the tool. And then score it like 1 to 5, something real simple, like 1 is easy and 5 is hard, and score it across 2 or 3 different tools, and then come up with a number, and then get it down to 2 or 3, and then dive a little bit deeper where you have more detailed conversations with the partners. And usually you can do that if you're trying to be fast in a couple of weeks without too much work, because most of the time you go to these tool providers, they know what you want. They'll say, like, here's the playbook, like this is the references, this is the cost, this is an ROI calculator. They'll do the work for you, because a lot of the work, because they want to sell you something, and the questions you're asking are different than what most other clients are asking them for.
Right. Okay. You mentioned before that Kendra Scott has a number of physical stores and physical locations, and you run the online e-commerce. So you have that unique opportunity to combine those two words. So how exactly is it combined within Kendra Scott?
It's a strong partnership right now. So one of the things that we want to keep growing is, how do we have a leader of omnichannel where now we have leaders? And so, again, the way I look at it is that each one of us is a different customer every day of our life based upon what we've got going on, right? Of the, oh crap moment, I forgot a gift and I need it in an hour. That's a buy online, pick up in store customer, right? I want to spend 4 hours picking out an engagement ring. That might be an online customer where they want to spend a lot of time doing a lot of research, and then they're going to order something. And so why I'm sharing that is, like, I think that we have to think about it from the customer lens and work backwards and start to say, what does that customer want? How can we be there for the customer where they need us, when they need us, how they need us? But right now, organizationally, my team is responsible for BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, BOSS, which is buy online, ship from store, and then ROPIS, return online, return on store. And so the way we do that is we work with the retail team of when we want to um, change a feature. Let's say right now I'm just going to make something up that for buy online, pick up in store, it's 8 hours before the customer can pick it up. And we've got some customer feedback that they really want it to be 1 hour. So I need to show the retail store how that's valuable, how many customers are trying to do it, and then they're going to tell me what labor implications they have. Well, the reason it's 8 hours is because I only have 2 people staffed. So if you want it 1 hour, I'm going to need 2.5 people staffed, and that's going to drive the cost this much. And then I need to put that cost in my business case. And so in that way, even though we're different departments, I can still show the total cost of implementing the program and then make them whole by saying, okay, I might get the budget for it, but I'm going to give you the labor that you need. It's going to be on your books. You're going to manage it. And then they're a part of going back to the business review process where we sit down and we look at the performance together as a team, not as adversaries, but as a team of how are we performing against our goals and where do we have opportunity to improve in the online experience and the in-store experience. And so I think, again, when you're a smaller organization, you're starting, that might be where your maturity is because no one's going to invest in a 20-person team to start where you have this person doing this and this person doing this. And so it's a lot of building trust and relationship and setting expectations where you're clear about what you're asking. They're agreeing that they can do it. They're agreeing they have the tools to do it and the time to do it and the labor to do it. And then you're agreeing at the period that you're going to measure it. And then when you sit down and measure it, you're open to how it is that you can continue to go good, better, best, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about working that relationship to continue to deliver better for the customer.
That's obviously true, but I can imagine you have to face a lot of situations where you approach, let's call it the old school manager, on site, very physical, and you're seen as a this guy. He comes here, he wants me
Sure.
to do some stuff that I don't even want to understand. So you have to deal a lot of with psychology, I would say.
Yeah, and it's 100% true. I mean, I think that for the most part, if you spent 5 or 10 years in a retail experience, you understand retail. If you've spent 5 or 10 years in an e-commerce or digital experience, you understand digital. And there aren't many people that you run into that have spent 5 or 10 years in both. And so the way I try to do that is early in my career, I try to spend a couple days, at least a quarter, in the store,
Mhm.
talking to the store managers, understanding the vernacular, understanding what's important to them, so that when I do have an obstacle like that, I can speak their language, so to speak, and I can understand what's important to them, right? And so when you have that conflict, what I try to do is avoid all the parts where we don't agree and figure out where we do agree and then build up from there, right? Like understand we don't agree, you don't like this, it doesn't make sense to you, it's digital and you don't understand digital. Okay, great. We're aligned though that we want to deliver value for the customer when they walk in that store, right? Like you want the sale and I want to give you the sale. Okay, great. That's money in your pocket, right? So that helps you. And so I think by understanding their business to a pretty good degree, understanding what motivates them, you position your business case such that they win and you win. If you position the business case so that only you win, they're gonna smell that. They're gonna see that. They're gonna understand there's nothing in this for me. But when you start to say, well, what if I drove the traffic to the store and you got 70% of the sale and I got 30% because I'm kind of your lead generation? Like that's similar to like how you might work a referral program with another partner, right? Yeah, that is right. And so I think it's kind of you really got to understand their business a little bit and what drives them so that you can position the business case so that you both win. If you try to come in and only you're going to win, it's not going to go well.
But also that I suppose I expect that also that requires you to have this power to go to the board of the whole company and suggest, or even more than suggest, like force changes in the big processes, right? Like as you mentioned, like who takes the credit for the client? Is it your account
Yeah,
as an e-commerce, or is it an account of the store?
yeah, yeah. If it was something brand new, like let's just take this example where we hadn't done buy online, pick up in store, and we were trying to figure out how we would share the value of the sale. What I would try to do is work that business case with the retail team so that both of us are taking it to the finance team or the executive team with a shared recommendation, right? And so, one of the things I learned early in my career is you never present an idea the first time to a group of people. You present the idea to a lot of the people that you know are going to be in the meeting before the meeting so that you
Yeah.
know which ones are going to be on your side and you know which arguments are going to come up and you know who's going to have your back in the meeting. Like you never want to go in and put an idea in front of an executive team or even a mid-level management team that none of them have ever heard before. And that way you can adjust your business case based upon the arguments that they tell you in kind of your one-on-one pre-meetings, but you also know who's going to have your back. And so it's not just you voicing it's a good idea. It's three or four other people in the meeting all going, he's reviewed this with us and I'm 100% on board. And you're going to have a lot more success. And so I think it's kind of a twofold strategy. It's like, how do you work with the other departments that you need for the program to be successful, and then how do you look at who is in the decision making of your organization and start to plant the seed of these ideas by having one-on-one conversations with them before you have some sort of approval meeting or board meeting or whatever the mechanism is for getting approval in your organization.
Okay. Did you have any non-obvious challenges in that endeavor? Like, because I can think from the top of my head that people are rarely looking for a change, and they typically are not really happy about it. That's kind of foreseeable. You can kind of anticipate it, but
Mm-hmm.
you did it. You went through that path and you delivered. So can you share some non-obvious challenges that you witnessed?
I mean, I think one of the things is that I have a core philosophy. It's listen, learn, and then lead, right? And it's kind of another analogy: go slow to go fast. And so I think it's learning to read people well and have relationships with them that aren't just about work, so that you can build that trust that you're a good human being and you care about them, and as many times as you can do favors for them, and so that you've kind of got some money in the bank when you need it the other way around. So to your question, like, have I ever been surprised? Yes, I've been surprised by people that I thought I had done some favors for and I thought I had trust with, and I realized they were playing a different game than I was playing. And I think that's going to happen anywhere you go, and you just have to decide if that's an organization that works the way you want to play the game or not, right? And I think that was a lights on moment for me where I didn't leave the company, but I left the department that I was in because of the way decisions were made there, and that's just not who I am as a person. I want to be transparent and I want to be honest and I want to be trustworthy and I want to have integrity and I want other people to reciprocate that, right? And so I've been surprised by that one time, and that caused me to think about why am I in this area, or is this a group of people that I want to work with if that's the way that they work. I think another surprise I've had is like a lot of us, when the market changes, you built up all this momentum and you're going into this idea, and then you get in a meeting and decisions have been made about the way the market has changed that kind of take the wind out of your sails. And my old adage for that one is it's the right idea, but it's the wrong time.
Mm.
And so you need to put the right idea back in your pocket and wait for the right time, and not let yourself get beat up that it's a bad idea, because it's a good idea and it had support from a lot of smart people. It's just the wrong time. And so how do you like keep that idea kind of on the back burner until it's time to kind of present it again? And so those would be two situations I can think of off the top of my head where I kind of been surprised when I went in and live and learn, right? That's
That's the
that's
only way. Yeah. And
yeah.
you mentioned ideas. Where do you take your ideas from? How do you educate? Do you just watch a competition, or is there anything else that you do?
I think there's three or four areas where I try to keep feedback, and that's where the ideas come from, right? The things that we want to put on the roadmap, the things we want to work on. I think a key area is however you get customer data. Do you get it from customer surveys? Do you have a NPS or CSAT survey on your site? Like, that can be one vehicle. Another critical vehicle is your customer service or support teams, right? Because customers are calling in because something that they thought was going to happen didn't work the way it did. And so you've got to be in regular, like we call it voice of the customer. How do we get regular feedback, even listening to the calls to hear the customer firsthand about their frustration with your tool or your product? I think another thing is benchmarking. Who are competitors, or who are not even competitors, but other experiences that you and your leadership team think do a great job of online retailing, even if they're not in your product area, right? I think the fourth area is reading different trade publications and having conversations and finding yourself out in a social forum where you're engaging with other e-commerce leaders, especially in non-competitive ways, right? Where you can understand kind of things that they're excited about so that you can keep some idea of where kind of the overall e-commerce industry is going. So those are four areas where we get a lot of the feedback that we want to build into future features or things that we want to put into our roadmap.
Right. You said overall e-commerce area. Let me repeat. You said overall e-commerce area. I have an impression that most of the companies, like serious companies, already invested in the e-commerce. If they had physical locations, they already have the online presence, as well as the other way around. Those who traded only online and wanted to go offline, they already did it. But okay, we reached that point, and in your opinion, as an insider, the guy who does it for a living, what's the next big thing?
I think it depends on where your company is, right? So, like you said, if you've already got both, then what else is going on in the related marketplace that you're not doing? And so, one thing we didn't talk about so far would be like same day delivery. So you've got a delivery from a distribution center. You have a retail store. Customers can go into the retail store and pick it up. But do you have a program that allows them to have same day delivery via a partner or your own internal capability? So I think that's something that you're starting to see a lot more with DoorDash and Instacart get into all these related retail businesses where they can offer. So that could be another area of growth that's low lift for customers. I think another area is related services, right? So like that philosophy of the flywheel, like how do you have related services that keep your customer engaged with you? So if you have a product like we have, do you have a replacement program if their product is damaged or lost, and do you want to introduce something like that? Do you have shipping protection? And so there's another way where you might either be able to get a one-time fee or maybe even some sort of membership if you sell it regularly enough where the customer again is paying you something. A great example of this would be Prime, Amazon Prime, right? Where you're getting all these related services to Amazon for this fee, and you keep the customer a part of you, and you stay top of mind. Then I think there's other moments in 24 particularly that are just going to be interesting. Is there some way you can seize on the presidential election that we're going to have here in the United States? Could be an opportunity, or it could be something that you want to stay way away from, right? Like it just depends on where you are. We also have the Olympics coming up, right? That's a worldwide event. I think that can be interesting and something that's going to be specific to 24 that you may want to look at how your company can play or not play in that. And then there's this Stanley Cup micro influencer moments that we're really seeing take off the last 6 months to a year or so, where you may not be able to plan for it, but can you seize it when it happens, or can you plan for it? And so like, with Stanley Cup, seems to be interesting to me for the US audience, right, is it was this old brand that went from nowhere. One article I read is that internally women had been trying to get them to change the cup design and color for 10 years, and they never would do it until this year, and they did it, and now it's like $750 million in sales in 9 or 12 months or whatever it's been. But why I'm saying that is there's this segment of the customer base, and maybe even more a larger demographic in the United States, where we want the ability to spend a small amount of money on something that makes us feel unique, or maybe even gives us some sense of luxury. And the Stanley Cup right now is having that moment where it's got some perceived value associated with, but the price point's not that high. And so can you and your product mix find something like that where you can create a moment where you can seize on, if it's the Gen Z market or it's some other larger market, dependent upon how inflation goes and interest rates and all that other stuff in the United States, like where you can have some thing that makes people feel good about themselves, but isn't at a super high price point. So those are like 4 or 5 things that I see coming in 2024, from really big programs all the way down to something kind of small.
I'm just trying to figure out right now, because what you just said sounds very encouraging for anybody who wanna enter the market right now with some kind of neat e-commerce solution, or some niche. But then again, a few minutes ago, we said that all the major players right now are doing really advanced stuff like same day delivery. That's such a complex endeavor where somebody who just starts the business right now, he cannot even think about it. So I'm trying to gouge out, do you think there's still space for the new players on the market?
Yeah, I think so, because it's same day. It can be really complicated, and again, it goes back to how much of the technology do you want to own. Walmart has a same day service. Amazon has a same day service. Instacart has a same day service. DoorDash. Those are all primarily North American players, but it's not a heavy lift to integrate them into your OMS, where you're basically just sending them a signal that there's something that they need to go to the store and pick up, and then they use the same sort of BOPUS, buy online, pick up in store signal, that you're already giving to say, like, I picked it up, and then it triggers any kind of customer emails you have or whatever else is kind of in your workflow. So it can be a lighter lift. You can also look at a 3PL provider where you ship some of your inventory to a third party distribution center that manages maybe already your Amazon store, and then can handle same day shipment from you, or prime delivery from a different warehouse. As with anything else, like a speed to market has a cost, right? So you're able to work with those partners and get stuff up running fast, but do you own the customer data? Is there any risk of giving them all of your sales data and your product gets really hot and all of a sudden they just copy your product, right? So I think you need to be careful with how you do it, but it could still be the right decision for a lot of people trying to get started in the business that want to have a lot of capability without a huge technical investment.
Yeah. Um, all right. So one last thing for today. With all the experience that you have, with all the expertise that you have, is there any word of advice for all these small and mid-size entrepreneurs right now who struggle on the e-commerce market?
It's easy to say because we're in a good place where we are in the market right now. It's really look inwardly at what are your key differentiators, right? Like, how are you trying to differentiate yourself with the customers, and what's the customer segment or segments you're trying to serve, and are you generating value for them? Because if you go into the market and try to serve too many customers all at once, you can lose your way, where you get focused on new customer acquisition, but then you get no repeats, right? And everybody knows that the most expensive thing to do is to acquire customers versus retain them. And so you got to focus on your customer segmentation and who they are and what's valuable to them. And you may in 24, depending upon your market outlook, need to pull back a little bit on customer acquisition and focus maybe a little more on retention, because it might be more cost effective for you to get some of your customers. But it really varies, right? Because if you're like we are in the jewelry business, 2 to 3 times a year might be all the average customer's ever going to buy, because it's Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, and Christmas, and maybe a birthday, right? And versus if you're in the CPG space, like, and you're producing a food good, you might get a customer to buy from you every week. So some of it depends on kind of the velocity you have, but I think there's every reason to continue to be optimistic. There continues to be more consumer demand, more consumers are shifting to being comfortable buying online, and like we talked about before, more kind of third party services that can be bolted on around a traditional e-commerce experience to provide more service to the customers continue to come to light. And that'd be my advice. Look at your customer segmentation and understand where you're trying to go and how you're differentiating yourself in the marketplace, and listening to the customer signals like we talked about earlier too.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much for today. Thanks for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Brett Power. Thank you.